All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick, recording on a Sunday night. I am at home. Drew is in some sort of cabin type of environment somewhere in the Northern Hemisphere. We're going to talk about our favorite part of the Northern Hemisphere, Anfield, and talk about Liverpool, who beat Man City in Manchester today as we're recording to take a stranglehold of the Premier League title race. We'll talk about that and the top 4, top 6 markets. We will talk about NBA Defensive Player of the Year again, now that we have a little bit more clarity around, well, not more clarity necessarily, but a little more data around the contenders. And then we'll talk about Monday's matchups in the association. Drew, from your cabin-based location, were you able to see any of Liverpool Man City?
I loved it. And it was a huge respite from what has been a brutal couple of days for yours truly. I've been getting my teeth kicked in, Jay. Have not loved the post All-Star break NBA action at all. Honestly, I missed the memo that like home teams were just going to be nuclear awesome, and that if you were on the road coming out of the All-Star break, you were just going to, kind of mail it in. But that said, it's been a rough weekend for me. Not just NBA, but tennis also went sideways. Although, congratulations to Miss Mira Andreeva. The Dubai title was pretty awesome for her. Huge milestone in a career of she'll be top 5, I think, at the end of this year, pretty clearly. So that was cool. But otherwise, Liverpool was the bright spot of my weekend. I watched a lot of Premier League on Saturday, Jay, and it stunk. Yeah, it was awful. The Cherries absolutely killed me. Losing to Wolves and the red card and the way that all went down was just a nightmare city. Because everything else I wanted to happen at the top of the Premier League went my way, and so yeah. It was a brutal loss today for Nottingham Forest, which was something I was hoping for. Chelsea is down. Newcastle, of course, beat Nottingham Forest, so they get those points. But the Liverpool win over Man City was cathartic. I was nervous. I was checking checking the price, seeing what the market had to say about that. All weekend, and felt pretty confident heading in there, thanks largely to you. You were very, very sure that Liverpool was going to get it done, and they did. So hopefully this is basically a done deal now, and those 75% cash out offers when they open on Monday morning will be more like 95%, and then we can all call it a season.
Indeed. You better not cash out at 95%, Drew, if that's the offer. You still be taking poison. I think we're looking at more of a 97, 98% job now. Yeah, I don't think there's too much to say about this market now that Liverpool are, minus 2,000 at BetMGM. The exchanges are trading 97, 98% now, which I think is correct. And yeah, in a nutshell, an 11-point lead when Arsenal have a game in hand and they face each other later in the season. It's not 100% done, clearly, but the issue is not just that the lead is massive and that return game is at Anfield. The other issue is that Arsenal is just not that good at the moment relative to Liverpool anyway, just because Arsenal missing their top 4 attacking players and they couldn't do anything against West Ham after being unable to do anything for 80 minutes against the Leicester team that immediately turned around and shipped 4 goals to Brentford the following match. And this Arsenal team, the market has kind of given up on them a little bit after what they put out against West Ham. Their look-ahead prices against Forest and Man United went from minus 145 on the win-draw win for Arsenal to minus 105. It was a pretty big data point against the Hammers that this Mikel Merino striker thing isn't going to be a panacea, and now they need a minor miracle to come back. And this does feel fairly done. Glad I won't have to trade political capital on the weekend anymore to be able to watch these matches live. Traded with my wife and can spend more time with my children instead. Let's talk about the top 4 market quickly. Arsenal still minus 3,000 there, as bad as the weekend was for them with the 1-0 loss to West Ham. They didn't lose too much ground on the top 4 market because, to your point, everyone else lost. Man City lost to Liverpool naturally. Chelsea had this debacle of a loss to Aston Villa. Forest lose, Bournemouth lose, and Newcastle the lone winner. I think that the one price that has gotten a little bit wonky, and it's Bournemouth, who are top 4 to make the top 4 at BetMGM plus 550. There's longer than that out there. There's some plus 700, plus 800 floating around. I think that is too long just because the market is just reacting too much to their results and then not kind of mitigating off of all the other results of all the other top 4 contenders losing, particularly Chelsea, Man City, and Forest, those teams losing kind of mitigates a little bit. And then Bournemouth losing at home to Wolves is a worse loss than anyone else had this weekend, but still, they were plus 300 going into the weekend and now plus 550, drifting out to 7 to 1, 8 to 1 some spots. That would be my bet in this market. But yeah, it was a great time for me to go all in on Bournemouth. That I've got some 4 to 1, I think, before the weekend. So great time before they lose to Wolves.
The red card really was the huge aspect of that game.
Yeah. That's a good thing, I guess, is that as bad a loss as it was, it's not like Arsenal's loss is catastrophic, not just because of the 3 points lost when it was like expected points, 2.5, 2.6. It's that their rating takes a huge hit as well, where it is. And that is the thing with a lot of these matches, is that it's not just as much about the result. It's about how that result what it reflects on how good you are going forward. And had Arsenal piled up 3.5 XG to 0.5 or whatever, you would feel better about their very slim prospects going forward. But because they just kind of didn't play well at all, again, that hurts. Whereas Bournemouth, it was half an hour in, they get a red card, and then they lost 1-0 to a Wolves side that has quietly kind of turned the corner. Wolves gave
a lot better.
Wolves gave Man City a lot more. Wolves gave Liverpool a lot more problems than Man City gave Liverpool. Wolves had a good win against Aston Villa. Mateus Cunha looks incredible. So it's if you take the loss and move on.
Yeah. I got a random question for you.
Sure.
Really. Mo Salah. We talked about him as top goal scorer in the EPL when he was minus 160. That's shipped, I think. I don't think that's. I would be shocked if there's a revisit of that market. Ballon d'Or for Mo? First ever?
I think so at this point. Yeah, we'll see what. Just trying to think through in my head the candidates. I mean, he's the only Premier League candidate possible. And he's into minus 700, Drew, to be the top scorer. Now, Alexander Isak might give more problems than Haaland if Haaland's knee is going to be an ongoing thing. Ballon d'Or, the other obvious candidates, I guess, like Mbappe, if he continues to go berserk for Real Madrid and they come back and they win the title and they win the Champions League. But Mo Salah's having one of the greatest seasons of all time. And it's kind of strange because as you watch him, he's like, I think he's almost 33 years old. He's not that fast anymore. He tried to take on, I think a Villa fullback midweek. And it's like, you just can't get past him. He's not that quick. It's just that the touch is so sublime. The finishing, the curling finishes combined with the power finishes, one of which he had today, albeit was deflected in off Nathan Ake. But watching Liverpool the past few months, every second, what has really stood out is just his passing is just next level and separates him from an Mbappe or a Ronaldo, who are better than Salah in other regards. But in terms of his passing, it is kind of Messi-like, where one, the selflessness, and two, just the angles and the touch. Also, just the way that he will bring down a long lofted pass from Trent Alexander-Arnold, bring it down onto his foot, and the ball is just like taped to his foot in like as soon as it hits him. His touch is exquisite, the passing, the vision. Yeah, it is incredible. It's kind of weird because like it's kind of like he has Messi on Inter Miami type of vibes where it's like, he's not the athlete that he was, but he's just looks so much better than everyone else. He doesn't have to do a ton of defensive work that we did track back a few times against City. And yeah, it just seems like the league is kind of in his hands at the moment. He is incredible. And he just scores every match as well. It's really hard to do that. He just does it. It's like 9 games running or something.
It's amazing. I love it. Absolutely love it. And
no, I think he I would think he should be the front runner, particularly given that Madrid are odds against to win La Liga.
Yeah, and I mean, I think as someone who I was against Mbappe in the top goal scorer Champions League market, and his hat trick last week was part of the coup de force that was, wow, things going very poorly for me everywhere. But I think ultimately he's banked enough disappointment that him getting the Ballon d'Or would be a surprise.
Yeah, he hasn't been as good as Mo Salah this year. I don't think it's all that close. But yeah, we'll see. The Ballon d'Or is a weird award. But Rodri won, who I think was the rightful winner. So maybe Mo Salah I would imagine that he has to be the favorite right now. The Ballon d'Or is not offered a ton of places in the US, but might try hunt that one down. Okay, Ricky Fowler joins a host of stars on the PGA Tour as they travel to Florida to battle the Bear Trap at the Cognizant Classic. Make sure to check out the action in the Palm Beaches Saturday and Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock. Okay, Defensive Player of the Year in the NBA. As we are recording, Memphis are playing Cleveland, which is a matchup between the two top candidates now that Victor Wembanyama is out for the season. Jaren Jackson is -105, Evan Mobley is +130, Lou Dort 10-1, Dyson Daniels 18-1. I just watched the end of the Pistons Hawks game, which took like 50 minutes for the last 3 minutes of the game to elapse. Brutal. Dyson Daniels, who I don't really think has any chance at winning this award, he is quite an incredible defender. Australia's own. His hands are incredibly sticky. He got hands like Mo Salah's feet. But I don't think he's going to win the award. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's 30-1. Ivica Zubac is 30-1. And then Amen Thompson, Jalen Williams, Rudy Gobert, Bam Adebayo. I think so often when we get these chaos markets, normally in a normal market, my inclination is to, just kind of immediately in my head allocate equity and then kind of, go through the actual process and pair kind of statistical stuff with, voter precedent and my own just sentiment on how things are tracking. This one, I think it's so up in the air and so weird that the place to start is just like, forget about equity and specific percentages and fares. Like, what's just like the order of who's most likely to win? Because that's where you have to start. And keen for your thoughts, Drew. But I think the order right now is I think Evan Mobley should be the favorite. I think Jaren Jackson should be the second favorite. I think they are in a tier of their own. And I might even put Mobley a kind of a quarter tier ahead of Jaren. And then the second tier, I think, is Lou Dort. And it's not probably not controversial. I think Ivica Zubac is the fourth most likely player to win, even if he's not particularly likely. And the Clippers got blown out by the Pacers, which certainly didn't help his case. But I just don't think Dyson Daniels or Shai or Amen Thompson or Jalen, I just don't think these guys are realistic candidates. And at least there's this kind of a narrow path for Zubac. But how would you order the top guys?
I agree with you. I think it should be Mobley over Jackson currently. The kind of major improvements in Jackson's game, if you've been watching the NBA and you've been following the NBA, which hopefully all of the voters have been, they've been all offense this year. Like, he's not the defensive force that won this award several years ago. Was it 3 years ago now? And mostly that was like a little fluky, as kind of very broadly covered. There was a little bit of home cooking on some of his stats that year, which really kind of helped him in the stonks category. And yeah, I mean, his blocks and steals are just not as prolific, and that's gonna it makes it tough to come up with like a mental reason to put him as clearly the best defensive player. Whereas, like, I don't know that like I really have trouble figuring out exactly how voters are going to ultimately decide on this one, right? Like if they like zero in on basketball reference, leaderboard sort of stuff, which I think some years they do, it's going to be tough to get over the fact that OKC's defense is so clearly better than the rest, and that SGA is kind of at or near the top of a lot of important categories for defensive performance. And last time we talked about this, I was like, well, I guess I'm on SGA Island, and he was 75-1, and he's shortened a lot. I don't feel great about that at all. I tried to kind of bet that case a little bit more sincerely over the weekend, and I'm coming up empty. It's really very clear he is a very helper role for that defense, and similar to Lou Dort, like, yeah, they may campaign for him to be the guy, and that might resonate, but it's not clear to me that he really has a case, which means this is probably just going to be adjudicated between JJJ and Mobley. And when you dig in a little bit at all to Mobley, it's very clear what they're doing at Cleveland is they are fashioning their rotation to putting him as the key defender on the floor with a bunch of guys who are terrible defenders, and he elevates the whole group so substantially that it almost is, kind of the reason that the bench unit for the Cavs is so effective. And I don't think I'm overstating this or overblowing this, and I think people will come to this conclusion as they dig in. You have minus defenders on the floor with him right now against the Grizzlies, and the defense is playing great. Like, this is kind of consistent with the way that they stagger their bigs. And, if there was a whiff of, well, he's out there with Jared Allen, they got two bigs, like, of course the defense is good. Like, that's not really the case. Like, it is much more the totality of the Cleveland defense is good because of what he does with the bench, I think.
Well, yeah, the good thing with Mobley, and like, I think the biggest knock on Mobley as a candidate, there'd be two. One, he's on the number 7 defense, and the winner is typically from a top 3 defense. And then two is that, Jared Allen is also a, potentially, second team all defense type of level player. And that may steal some credit from Mobley, but that gets diluted a bit by what you're talking about, where the strength of the Cavs defense statistically has been with Mobley on the court. When Mobley's off the court, they get over 6 points worse per 100. And Jared Allen's splits are not very flattering for him in comparison. So that is a good separator for Mobley. I think there's three little kind of elements that I want to touch on. First is Jaren versus Mobley. Second is just Dort as a candidate. And then third, I want to talk about Zubac very quickly. It's not the best time to talk about Ivica Zubac. I thought he got absolutely torched. But Mobley, Jaren, because if you stack them up statistically, it's pretty close. They have very similar, it's like almost eerily identical numbers across the board in a lot of ways. On-court defensive rating, basically a wash. On-off is basically a wash. Defensive EPM, both hanging around plus 2.0, basically a wash. The kind of rim protection numbers, again, nearly identical. Other advanced stats, like, D LeBron, Mobley has an edge there. But for the most part, statistically, they are very, very close. Mobley, right now, it's going to change based on the result of this game that they're playing against each other. But right now, the teams have literally identical defensive ratings, 111.0 by NBA.com. But the reason why I think that Mobley should be favored over Jaren, there's two things. One, he has an easier remaining schedule, which helps. And then two, and this is a little bit more nebulous, but it just doesn't feel like Jaren Jackson's year. Like, what is the narrative behind Jaren Jackson? It's this team that's going to be, it's a solid, good team. They're going to be slightly above par. They're going to win, 51, 52 games or whatever. And their over-under was, I can't remember what it was, but it was, mid to high 40s. And they're going to have the number, probably median outcomes, having like the number 8 defense, because their schedule is tougher going forward than other teams around them in the defensive rankings, like Cleveland, Minnesota, Golden State. And he's having a much less kind of exemplary season than when he won Defensive Player of the Year 2 years ago. The block rate has significantly lessened. It just doesn't feel like his season and conversely, it does feel like Mobley's season, because the Cavs have a chance to have the best record in the league, because Mobley has taken such a significant leap, because, statistically he has created differentiation from Allen. He is, he has the guards 1 through 5 thing, unicorn type of defender, passes the eye test, has been big in big games, like against Oklahoma City the first time they played on national TV. And I think all of those elements, and just the sense that it kind of just feels like his year, which is a little bit silly, but I think that combined with the Cavs having a pretty easy schedule the rest of the way, and him to kind of bolster his case statistically, I think that's going to give him the edge. But what do you think?
I love this. You've convinced me that as soon as we log off this call, I'm adding more Mobley, even though I have a bunch. Though, like your point is exactly correct, which is he has every tiebreaker, every one, and it's a statistical tie right now.
Yep. No, I think, I think the edge goes to Mobley, and it can change. Like, Jarrett can go on a tear, or Jarrett can have... The other thing too is this race is so delicately poised that Jaren Jackson has like a 7-block game on national TV. Like, all of a sudden, like, the race is flipped on its head. So that's why I think in a race this uncertain, there have to be somewhat softened convictions.
Jaren, he has one. Mobley does not.
It's true. It's another thing
One seed Cavs is happening.
Yeah,
there is a world where we wake up and the Grizz are a 4 seed. Like that is very, very live. That the Grizz slide to the 4. And yeah, I think ultimately all of the soft things that come into play when it comes down to making that decision about who you put 1 and 2, and if these guys are consolidating 1 and 2, it's going to be Mobley.
Yep, I lean that way. And when I think about who I would vote for myself, I think those would be the top 2 candidates. We'll get into... I think my ballot right now would be Mobley 1, Jaren 2, and then Zubac 3. And we'll talk about why it wouldn't be Dort 3. And the reason why is I kind of don't know why. It just feels like Mobley should be first. It just feels like his season. And I think it's just slight edge to him. And I think a lot of people are going to feel that way. But, on merit, I think it's a coin flip between those two. But when it's a coin flip, you vote for who you want to vote for. And for all the reasons that we talked about, I think most people will feel better about clicking the name Evan Mobley in the drop down where you put in your vote. Lou Dort is going to be a very popular candidate. I wonder how popular he would be if Marcus Smart didn't win 3 years ago. And everyone is going to use the Marcus Smart comparison. And I get that there are elements of that. This Oklahoma City defense is arguably the greatest of all time relative to era. And so that is Dort's case. Dort's case is very simple. He is the guy that they are probably going to campaign for as the representative of the best defense of all time. And in a weird open field, perhaps that can get him home. Like, I think he is the 3rd most likely player to win, justly or not. And it's basically just because of that one sentence. But I don't think this is like Marcus Smart, and there's a couple of reasons why. One, Dort has good defensive pedigree. He doesn't have the pedigree that Smart had. And it's easy to forget that because Marcus Smart is now like launching threes on the Wizards. But 2 years ago, Marcus Smart coming into his Defensive Player of the Year season, there was the 7 seasons leading up to it, he got all defensive team votes. I think twice he'd actually made an all defensive team. He was also like the undisputed leader of the Celtics defense. He was the identity of the defense. He was the guy like diving on the floor, guarding 1 through 5. I think I mentioned this last time we talked about this. He's like the guy in national TV games guarding Joel Embiid in the post and like poking his chin into his back. Like, he was just the face of that defense in a way that Lou Dort just isn't. Like, I think if you ask most people, they would say that Lou Dort is the 3rd best defender on the Thunder behind Chet definitely. And then also probably behind Alex Caruso. I think most people correctly think is a better perimeter defender. I would argue that Shea, Hartenstein, and J-Dub might also be all better than Dort, but, you're getting into, I think you can argue, whatever you want there. But I think for the main thing is that I think that the voters will see this as a committee in a way that, Boston's defense was a committee as well, but like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and Al Horford, they weren't stealing Defensive Player of the Year credit from Marcus Smart. Robert Williams was a little bit, but Robert Williams got hurt at the end of the season and kind of removed himself from the conversation, and it just all coalesced behind Smart. I think it would have anyway. We didn't get to test out if Robert Williams had played the last 7 games or so, but ultimately, I don't really see it with Dort. I'm keeping my mind open to it, but I think that he is a distant third favorite. What do you think?
I loved all of that. That was just a brilliant monologue. Lou Dort was a better defender 2 years ago. Honestly, is a big part of the problem. This is Mobley's to lose, and I will use my last remaining time to talk about awards to note that Peyton Pritchard had 3 points today.
Yes, he did indeed. Okay, we'll move on. We don't have to touch on Ivica Zubac. We can talk about him if he gets more interesting in the race. Watch the biggest names in sports talk, including Mike Florio, Dan Patrick, Dan Lebitard, and Matthew Berry. So they cover the biggest moments on and off the field each weekday on the NBC Sports Now channel. It's now available on Peacock and free on most streaming platforms. Learn more at nbcsports.com/now. Plus, on Monday, BetMGM players will receive a no-sweat token to apply to bet on any sport. If your bet loses, you'll receive a bonus bet back in return. Okay, let's talk about Monday's NBA slate. A lot of weird games. On the agenda. We have Clippers Pistons on a back-to-back. Uncertainty around whether Kawhi Leonard or Norman Powell play. Pistons also played in a game that just went for 6 hours today by my unofficial count. How that fourth quarter took to elapse. We have the 76ers are playing, who are now just not even a compelling story, mostly just a sad story. Heat Hawks, Wolves Thunder. What tickles your fancy here on the slate, Drew?
I'm blown away that the Sixers are favorites. I know that the Bulls are trying to lose, and I get it. But wow. This Sixers team is a disaster. While I know everybody was losing their minds over the fact that Peyton Pritchard scored 28 points against the Sixers last week, let's not forget that Malik Beasley had I think 30-something. 28 for Pritchard, 36 for Malik Beasley against that same Sixers squad. So let's just keep it all in perspective, guys. But no, in seriousness, the one bet I've made for Monday, I laid it with the Nugs. I think the Nuggets are for real, and I think they're truly the second best team in the West. I think that this spot in particular is pretty solid for them. I make them 6-point favorites. I laid the 4. It's ticked up to 4.5. I think as long as you can get 4.5, that's a bet. If it goes to 5, I would pass. But I do really like the way that they have kind of figured out their rotations, and Russell Westbrook is back, and as wild as it is, he really matters as the fifth Beatle. Nuggets for me is favorite play on Monday.
Okay, I like it. Heat Hawks, which I may tune into, as that seems a lock to come down to the final 90 seconds, if ever a game were to be such a lock. The Heat have opened 2-point favorites in Atlanta. The total's 225.5. Both those teams coming off of games where starters played to the end. They are kind of both weird teams where the offense is just so geared around one guy, and that guy is excellent. But we're not talking about Luka Doncic as a heliocentric force as it goes in regard to Trae Young and Tyler Hero, though. The Heat are such a tough watch on offense, and Hero's been incredible on offense and has taken a huge leap, but at the same time, at the end of these games, it's like Tyler Hero, as soon as he gets any look, he just has to put it up because no one else can do anything. Against the Bucks,
he's getting double teamed constantly.
Yeah, he got to 40 against the Bucks by taking like a 34-footer. Like, it's insane. It's like, well, I guess it's open. Yeah, it's from half court, but it's open, and I'm never open at all. Let's talk about Tyler Hero's former teammate before we get out of here, the Golden State Warriors, who I think from a kind of team rating variability kind of standpoint, just looking forward to the last 6 weeks or so of the season, they've become a compelling team. I know that H-Bob tweeted out that wouldn't be surprised if they get out of the West. I don't think they're going to get out of the West, but I do think there is a chance that we get to playoff time and that they are rated as, potentially the third best team in the West after the Thunder and Nuggets. What do you think of Golden State?
I'm fine putting them as the third rated right now.
Yeah.
Period. Thunder, Nugs, Warriors, probably your third rated team. The weird thing about a team with this many vets is when you get to this time of year, and really in the playoffs, it matters, are they healthy? How many miles have they logged this year? How many miles have they logged since last year's playoffs, or including last year's playoffs? And really, this is not a very, heavily ridden group. Like, they are somewhat fresh, and the vibes after the Jimmy Butler trade, I did not expect this. They are so overwhelmingly positive. It's kind of insane. It feels like the vets in the core of that team went from, well, maybe we'll do something this year. Maybe we'll make the play in. Do we really need to ride our bodies into the ground at our old age? And we're not building anything here, to, oh, wait, no, now we're contenders and we can, we find our way in and we're going to be a problem for someone. And I think that makes the West very fun and interesting. And as long as they're not in the 1-8 against the Thunder, I'm happy about it.
I don't want that.
I do not want that.
It'll be fine, but I don't want it. Yeah.
Do not want.
Let's get the Wolves instead.
Warriors, get in as a 7, or better yet, as poorly as the Clippers are playing, get in as the 6. Yeah. Like, that could very well happen. The Warriors could just get in cleanly. But I gotta say, the vibes with Butler coming, like, everybody, it feels like they are all so much happier, so much more engaged. And the throttling of the Kings and the Mavericks was like, wow, okay, I guess this is really happening. And I gotta say, until they prove otherwise, or until there's an injury question mark or concern, they are very much on my radar. And I gotta tell you, the rest of if they get onto the other side of the bracket from OKC, then I'm going to be sweating a Thunder Warriors Western Conference Finals, and Jimmy Butler doing it again, stabbing me right in the heart.
I'm not too worried about that. The reality is they're still starting Moses Moody and Brandon Pajemski, and they're playing like Geese Santos.
Kuminga's coming back, man.
Yeah.
He's coming back on this road trip.
Yeah, is Kuminga any good? We sure Kuminga's good? Why is Kuminga good? He's might be good in 2 years. I think he's fine.
The fifth banana? Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, he'll help over some of these guys that they're playing, but I don't think he's really going to move the needle a ton with his game. He's also kind of an awkward fit next to Jimmy and Draymond. That's like 3, and like Jimmy kind of shoots, but that's kind of 3 relative non-shooters that you're putting on the floor. I guess Kuminga's probably just going to come off the bench, given he's been out for so long. I gotta say, I don't entirely understand how this is all happening when the rotation is what it is. But the thing is that, and his demise was written a bit prematurely, but I think the sense was that the Warriors, they missed out on Kevin Durant. And that was the really big move. And why'd they trade for Jimmy Butler? That's like deck chairs on the Titanic. I think we have pretty good evidence now that Jimmy Butler's just better than Kevin Durant. Has anyone watched Phoenix play lately? They're horrific. And Durant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Durant.
3-point dogs tomorrow? Rightfully so. Like, embarrassing.
They're just not a good team. Like, they're worse than the Sacramentos of the world, I think, at this point. It's good that they moved Beal back into the starting lineup. I don't understand why he's coming off the bench. Like, that team you don't need to play Tyus Jones to have a point guard when Devin Booker and Kevin Durant handle the ball so much. But yeah, I went through a stretch of watching a strange amount of Phoenix Suns basketball, and the end of these games, it's just like, all right, well, you're going to give it to Durant to ISO, switch onto the center, and then Kevin Durant can take a mid-range pull-up jumper over the center, who's the tallest defender on the floor, to contest his shot. So it just, like, Durant just doesn't seem like the same level of player, whereas Butler, who, like, the past couple of years, even though he's been older and he kind of revs it up in the playoffs, he's still, like, advanced stat-wise has been a monster in the regular season.
He gets to the free throw line 10 times a game.
Yeah.
Like, he's automatic points.
Yeah.
Before we wrap, Jay, I got a gun-to-head question because you mentioned Hero in the Heat. You've been watching Heat basketball.
Yeah.
Gun-to-head, Magic or Heat in the Southeast?
Magic, pretty clearly as well. I watched a lot of Heat lately. There's a lot of Davion Mitchell, and there's a lot of, like, Andrew Wiggins posting up. Kalel Ware, you forget that he's out there for like 20-minute stretches. Bam is playing a bit better, but they're playing Bam at the 4. Like, the offense just has no prayer, and the defense, which in theory should be kind of nasty, with like Davion Mitchell, Andrew Wiggins, Bam Adebayo, and Kalel Ware. That's a pretty sick 4 to have. But Hero's terrible on defense. And he's never been good on defense, and now he's carrying this insane load on offense. So that's not necessarily a huge knock on him, but he's a weak link there. And then, like, they just don't have the connectivity. And Kalel Ware is, like, massive, but kind of has headless chicken vibes as well a lot of the time, where he's just kind of block shots and not having a great deal of success. So I don't think they have enough. I think they're just kind of they're like, if you started the season again, this Heat team, aren't they like a 40 and 39 and 43 type of team?
I mean, that's being kind of generous to them, I think.
Well, I mean, they're 2-point favorites in Atlanta. I know Atlanta's bad, Atlanta, but
I think. I know it just said they're like, 37 win team.
Yeah, that kind of range. Yeah, probably starts with a 3. And the Magic, for all their sins, like, this team was like a 4 seed last year or something. So, at least they were flirting with that, I think. And Jalen Suggs should come back at some point, it looks like. Had a great win today over the Wizards, I think. So, yeah, I think they'll be able to get right. And the main thing as well is they have an easy schedule, and they should be able to. I think the defense will get right enough that they can kind of take out the trash, and I'd certainly make them favorite over Miami, as the market does. Okay, cool.
That all checks out.
Okay, we are done for today. Don't forget to check out NBCsports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. Also, a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From myself and Drew, we'll see you tomorrow.